All right, I'm here with our group talking about the formative assessment videos. The first video we're talking about is the one from the elementary school classroom on collaborative discussions. And so one of the first questions that was asked is how Ms. Bouchard involved her students in establishing the learning goals and success criteria. And some of the stuff that I had found was that she started off asking the kids like to discuss what it means to collaborate and discuss, and they kind of like how they would build off each other's ideas and had them just write down some ideas that they found that they thought it looked like. Um, and then they ended up having like these post-it notes and they picked up which things they thought were important to them and wrote them on sand strips. So they took kind of what were ideas that they had, connected to what she was teaching them, it looked like, and then made it very specific for their groups. And what it would look like for them. And so I thought that was pretty good of how she was able to kind of get them to formulate their own thoughts, but she was able to guide that in the direction she wanted.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it there.
Yeah.
She just had them. The lesson was about collaborative discussion, and then she had them doing collaborative discussion in order to teach them what it actually was. And I think one of the kids like made the connection in the beginning. He was like, "Oh wait, that's what we're doing right now. We're doing collaborative discussion."
What I noticed was that she gave them the collaboration. They had to define it. They also was working through the learning target, and so when they came up with the learning target, I think the kids are the ones who pretty much defined what the learning target was, and they put it in their terms. And to me, that gave the kids ownership of the target. So it's no longer what the teacher is saying, but it's more so what they have determined as this is what the learning target means to us, and this is what we're going to get from the next lesson. So they had ownership in it. So I think they'd be more invested in learning what she had presented.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I was going to say, I also put that down. I said that everyone was able to define it their own way in order to make it their own and take ownership in it.
Yeah, that's it. Same thing. I mean, it was basic, like it was very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and introduce question number 2. So our second question was, what observations did Ms. Bouchard make during the discussion? So I actually wrote down more notes for this one than I did for any other question. I have down that I noticed her going around with a clipboard and writing down evidence that the students were using the success criteria. She had the sheet drawn out with blank boxes where she could put student names and then comments about what the students were saying for both success criteria and then any extra comments that she decided she wanted to put down for them. And she just felt that the criteria was very effective because the discussions were more effective and it helped to pinpoint what she needed to keep an ear open for. And she noticed from her notes that while students were using the appropriate language, most students were not asking questions.
Just adding to her observations, I noticed that she observed the students working and trying to work through the words, but she didn't immediately try to give them the information. She worked toward getting them to understand, working through definitions for themselves. And I noticed how she marked on her clipboard, and she also was on what I call, I guess, a formative assessment to see who was getting it and how she can lead those who are getting it to help the others. So I noticed that. I think she would say like, well, we can add on, and the other students could add on the collaboration. So she prompted them.
Yeah, I think just one of the biggest things out of all that was the fact that she, like going around making the observations, she actually stopped and like evaluated and reassessed and like re-guided them based on what she saw. And it was all like live. and right there happening, which was, I think, the key part of that whole lesson and why it was successful.
Yeah, I think they said something. I think she mentioned it, or it may have been the other video about the immediate feedback.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing for kids, especially at that age group, to get the immediate feedback. Normally, you give them an assessment and you grade it, and it's like the next day or 2 days later. And it's not as fresh in their mind. They've got other classes going on. They might not even remember what you guys were doing, let alone what they were thinking or talking about. So I think that was, like David said, that was probably the biggest thing, the most effective thing about it, I thought.
Well, I think that correlates directly with the assessment of their own learning, with the self-reflection. Because I think the reason why that self-reflection was so beneficial is because they, and why they are able to assess their own learning is because they got that live feedback during class time, and they were able to make adjustments, and she had the notes that she was able to go around and talk to them about. So I think just having it all live and having that feedback allowed them to really assess themselves and what they are doing and understand it.
I like doing the self-assessment. I noticed that she allowed them to assess each other. So it's not only self-assessment, but they assess with their input and then evaluate the other students' input to pick out which was the best. Like she said, like, which definition of this you feel like is the better one. So they evaluated their own and measured against someone else, and then they came up with a overall definition for collaboration. So I noticed that too. All right, are we ready for the next video?
I say, do we want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think we kind of just answered that.
Yeah, I was gonna say we just did 3, and I took notes on that one, and you guys kind of got them all.
Well, Sam, you want to start us off with the next one?
Yeah, let me get those questions up real quick, or if somebody has them. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, the real world examples, that's where it started with the congruency, and it asked like why they started with that and what was important about that. And as a math teacher, that kind of like hit home with me, because a lot of kids are like, well, I'm never going to use this, and they don't like grasp it. They don't care about it because it's not applicable to them. And so I said, when they can see it in the real world, it helps them better understand what we're looking at, and it doesn't seem so far-fetched and so out of their reach. They can be like, well, I think they were talking about that ball at Disney World.
Yeah.
And they could identify all the different triangles in there. And so they know what it is and they can see it. Now they can take it and look at the math behind it and have a better visual and a better understanding, is kind of what I said.
I thought the best part was when I like this one particular student that just like his reactions to everything they were doing in class was like, oh,
yeah. I wish I had that. I don't typically get that. Oh yeah, it's on the ball. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, Samantha, I agree with what you said about like relating it to the real world, because I know at my school, the class kids complain about the most is math.
Yep.
And they always say, well, when am I ever going to use this in real life? And so I think relating it to real life is probably the most important part for math. But I think it can also be the most difficult for a math teacher to do in certain situations. I'm not a math guy. I'm history, so I don't know. You would be.
Yeah.
You would have better experience with that.
To do that. And sometimes when you try to relate it to the real world, it's like so far over their head that it's even hard then. But I thought she did a really good job having them like Google or search for different things. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That's the question I wanted to answer, because the other stuff in this lesson, I'm not a math person, so as I was watching it, I'm like, okay, I just zoned out. So, it's not my interest, but I did notice how it applied to the real world when I saw the, I guess that's not a jungle gym, but I don't know what they call a playground thing with all the triangles and stuff in it. But I can see,
I don't know,
be more interested if they can see that it works outside of the classroom rather than something that they're doing just to get through a lesson.
So, and Sam, maybe you can give some insight on this, like with the graph paper and the shapes. Like from what I could tell, they were like manipulatives that they could use to help control and see physically how to mess with it versus in the program. Like I thought that was the biggest thing, and to help with the conversations of how to move it.
Yeah, I think like when I use manipulatives, it's just that's kind of like the first step, is so they can touch it and they can see, okay, if I move it here, what happens? And then they have like just one shape. And then when they go to the program, they could look at all the different angles and all the different side links. It's like a step above the graph paper and the little shapes. Because I used to have like a transparency, and they would like turn the transparency sheet and things like that, because I didn't have a class set of the triangles. But that's like the level 1, and then you move up to the program, because I've used the GeoGebra before, and it's difficult. Like that is a tough program to try to.
It looked weird.
It's hard.
Like, I mean, I wrote that too. Like, it seemed like it was the first step. You know, they could manipulate it on the paper and then kind of test it out on the computer and see if it gave them the same result. But that program on the computer, I was like, it blew my mind. And I love
that looked really complicated. I think part of the shapes in the graph paper was a little bit addressing different learning styles too.
Yes.
Because a lot of kids are better if they actually can physically touch a tangible object and manipulate it, as opposed to using the computer program. Because like you guys both said, it looked really difficult to use that program.
That's what I was going to say. I added that in my notes that maybe with the graph paper and the objects, maybe that's more for a tactile type learner.
Yeah.
And so they can transfer that knowledge over into the computer program once they're more comfortable with the basic parts. Like I said, I'm not a math person, but I just saw them moving triangles around on graph paper. I'm like, well, they're touching it, so it's tactile.
All right, so looking at the last one, when students are ready to work on an extension activity, and just without even talking about like when they are ready, I just like the idea of having an extension activity for students when they finish. And that way you can kind of differentiate for each kid, when they're ready to go and move on to something like that. I like that idea of it.
Yeah, I think it was just about her checking, like you said, each individual kid or each individual group, and using their understanding of, it was like what was the 4 steps? The 4 steps of the whole thing, the summative assessment or formative assessment?
Act on was the last one.
That was 4. It was like her bridge between 3 and 4. I thought was really good. We use something like that at my school, but it's 5 steps: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and then evaluate. And I guess the act on is kind of like the evaluate at our school.
Our school decided to do that.
Does anybody use anything similar to that?
We do what you're doing. I think that's more or less probably history and English.
Is it?
Probably that does that, because that's what we're doing.
We do gradual release of responsibility. So I do, we do, and you do.
Yeah. And my wife does that. She's in elementary school.
Yeah.
Are you elementary?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
But I did notice that she said specifically that she would move kids to the extension activity when she noticed that they could find multiple ways to solve the problem that they themselves did, and when she noticed that they were also having good discussions about it. So I guess that was a more specific way for her to move them on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about on these?
Other than that, just like what was like something that you wanted to take back to your school. So like my big thing I really liked was like how the first teacher did the self-reflection piece.
That's what I put down as well. I really liked that. And I don't know if maybe I looked at it wrong or what, but did they do 2 self-reflections? Was that correct?
It looked that way.
That's what I thought. Maybe they did 2, and I really liked that, if that's what they did, because they had the first self-reflection, and she kind of talked to him a little bit and said, okay, as a whole, I think we need to work on, I think the asking questions piece. And so she let them like try again. And then after that, they were able to do another self-reflection to see, okay, after I've done all of this, let's see where I'm at now. And then at the bottom, I really liked them creating their own goal, I think.
Yeah, that was good. I liked the whole thing. I mean, like, I don't know if it was because it was a 4th grade classroom and I can kind of, you know, make a connection, but I liked it. And at the same time, it was like alien to me because that self-reflection sheet, I can't even imagine my kids doing something like that.
Yeah.
Like they would see that and be like, what?
Yeah, I think it was so effective there. Not to say that it wouldn't work where we're at, but I think both classrooms, if I'm not mistaken, were in Connecticut, which is an extremely affluent area. And I don't know that would work where I'm at all. Arthur, I don't know. You're in Richmond County, right?
Right. Richmond.
Not sure that would work for you either, just judging by the type of kids we have. Not saying that they're not capable of the same mental capacity of kids in Connecticut, but I'm not sure that would work in the same fashion. You could definitely take parts of it. Like you could throw a self-reflection in at the end of the day or something, but maybe not that in depth. And I don't know how structured it could be, but you definitely take details and certain aspects of it.
The part I would take back, excuse me, were you finished? The part I would take back to my school more or less is giving the kids ownership of the learning targets rather than me trying to force it on them. Let them evaluate the learning target, put it in their own words, and let them discuss it so they can know what they're getting ready to learn, and they can own that and get that out the lesson. Then I can revisit it and ask them or assess them and find out, did you feel that you learned what you're supposed to, rather than having a overall reflection at the end. But I do like the ownership part.
Which, going off what you're saying, Travis, I think it could be done anywhere. I was down in Columbus County.
What county are you in?
I'm now in Wake County, but I used to be down in Columbus County. So I used to be down right there next to you, Travis.
Yeah.
I did self-reflections, and I still do self-reflections, but they're not – I don't get the response like that what she was getting. Granted, I have high schoolers, so it's a little bit different, but still I wasn't getting that response. But I think one of the things that I noticed about hers was how broken up her lesson was, and how where she was able to stop and talk and discuss and then start back up again. And I think I wonder if that would make the big difference in being able to get a solid self-reflection if they kind of knew more of what they were looking at, because you're stopping and explaining and kind of redirecting and then trying again.
Yeah, I thought that was part of what made it so effective. She had like a little a technique in there that she used to get all the kids quiet.
Oh yeah.
She made a sound, and then all the kids like in unison made the same sound, and then they all stopped talking, and she kept going. Yeah. I thought that was awesome. I've seen that before, but that was cool. I've never seen it used so effectively before. I thought that was really neat.
I don't know if it'll work with 9th graders.
Yeah, I mean, again, the elementary factor might be helping her out.
Hey, not all of our kids listen to that stuff. Like, I mean, like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and you'll have more than half the class that won't repeat it and pay attention to you. They'll keep picking their noses and doing whatever it is that they're doing.
Maybe you could try like doing some lyrics to a popular song, doing like half the lyric, and then have the kids come in and finish the rest of the lyric, and then they probably all shut up after that.
Either that,
just a thought.
Yeah, as I said, or they'll keep singing.
They might start dancing too.
That's true. That's true. But I like that idea. I really do. I like that idea.
I can see how that would work. Not for me. But I can see how it would work for some.
Alrighty, guys. Well, if we don't have anything else to add, I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, let me stop this video here.